Friends, I welcome you to my channel. Before listening to this story, I will ask you to like and subscribe. It is not difficult for you, but it is pleasant for me. And we're starting. Dexter was dressed like a cowboy. "Why do you have a gym bag?" his wife asked. "I'm Doc Holliday from Gunsmoke, and this is my medical bag." Marcia was wearing a wedding dress with a veil and a tiara. Dexter knew it meant more than just putting on a suit. This was done in the interests of Art Russell. He had heard that Art was going to wear a tuxedo to the corporate Halloween party they were going to. Once there, Marcia spent more time with Art than with Dexter. When she danced with Art, their costumes made them look like a married couple. Art divorced his wife, and it finally happened only last month. The party was in full swing. Marcia was finishing dancing with Art when Dexter came up to him. He inserted a hypodermic needle into Art's chest and injected the contents. It took only a few seconds before Art fell to the floor and died a few minutes later. Marcia started screaming, and people came running to see what happened. Dexter went to the front door and locked it. He took the pistols out of their holsters and fired into the air, letting everyone know that the pistols were real and loaded. "Sit down and be quiet, and you won't get hurt. Try to be heroic, and you will die. I know that many of you have already called the police about all this, because I hear sirens. My name is Detective Bruce Burns. When the call came in, I rushed over as fast as I could. You see, I've been investigating Halloween murders for the last 10 years. The department hired me 4 years ago. The reasons were always the same. On Halloween, often at a party, a man was killed. The killer used a hypodermic needle filled with a large dose of rat poison. Once the poison entered the bloodstream, the victims didn't stand a chance. Catching the killer was so difficult because we could never find enough evidence to link the murders. A big part of the problem was that he or she only killed one person a year. We assumed that they were always in suits, which made it easier for them to escape. A couple of times, a man in a sad clown costume appeared at the same parties where the crimes were committed. However, the police never found the clown. We had no idea where or why the killer would strike. Sometimes it happened even in the neighboring city. The only thing we could be sure of was that it kept happening. The victim was most likely a married man with a high income. It was supposed to happen shortly before Halloween, and a hypodermic needle was in use. The party was held on the 3rd floor of the Elks Lodge. It was reported that a certain Art Russell had just been killed by a certain Dexter Manowitz. Witnesses said he stabbed him in the chest with a hypodermic needle. When I got to the building, I called the extension number on the 3rd floor. "I'd like to talk to Dexter," I told the caller. "This is Dexter. I'm ready to tell my story, but I'll only do it once. I want to talk to Detective Bruce Burns." I followed him, and he seemed like a reasonable person. "I'm Detective Burns, Dexter. How can we meet without further violence? The building is surrounded, and there is no exit. Why don't you let people go and get out yourself? Then we can talk." "No, I don't think so. You can come up here with a dictaphone. I will tell you my whole story, but I need your word that you will not have a pistol or any other weapon with you. If I see any of them, or if your SWAT team tries to enter before we finish talking, I will start shooting at people. We don't need anyone else to get hurt. I'll go in through the main entrance. Please just calm down and don't touch anyone." When I entered the party room, I saw about 60 people in suits. They looked worried, but not too scared. The door to the fire escape was locked from the inside. There were no windows on this floor, so the SWAT team couldn't fire a single shot without breaking in. "Close the door behind you," said the man I thought was Dexter. "Unbutton your jacket and turn around." "Dexter, why don't you let these people go?" "I'm your hostage," I replied, following his order. Dexter really didn't look like a man to be scared of. He was short and weighed about 70 kilograms. No one would ever have thought that he was a murderer. "Look, people, I'm not here to hurt anyone unless I have a choice. I'm a Halloween killer, and I'm going to tell Detective Burns my story. Anyone who wants to leave can leave. Those who stay will hear about all the murders firsthand and why they happened. Those who want to leave, exit one by one through the back fire escape," Dexter said, addressing the crowd of people. "You little asshole. You don't have the guts to shoot anyone?" said a drunk named Jack Randall, who lunged at Dexter, posing as a hero. Dexter shot him in the leg, and everyone screamed. Jack fell to the floor, writhing in pain. His wife grabbed a tablecloth and wrapped it around his leg. "You're a dumbass. I told you that I would shoot if anyone provoked me. I could have killed you. But I know that you slept with Marcia, and I wanted your wife to find out about it." Marcia began to cry. The look on Jack's wife's face said she knew Dexter was telling the truth. She slapped her husband hard in the face before turning to Marcia. "You're a fool." She screamed at the whole room. Another person spoke up and asked if they could still leave. "Go ahead," Dexter said, waving the gun toward the emergency exit. "The SWAT team will be outside the door. Tell them not to shoot. Make sure you give them all the information about what you observed here before they let you go." I told the nervous man who wanted to leave. I was surprised that out of 60 people, only 20 actually left. I think they really wanted to hear about what was going on in Dexter's life. Jack Randall left to heal a gunshot wound. His wife decided to stay. I later found out that they were Dexter and Marcia's close neighbors. Dexter started by giving me a lot of information. He and Marcia have been married for 30 years. They have 5 adult children and 6 grandchildren. Dexter was an accountant and had been working as one since he graduated from college. Continuing to talk, he said that he was 31 years old when he met Marcia at the local library. She was only 18 at the time. Marcia was having trouble keeping the books, and Dexter asked if she needed help. At that time, she was a stocky girl with braces. They became friends and started dating after she graduated from high school. She was his first and only real girlfriend. He thought he was her first and only, but much later realized that this was far from the case. Dexter said he treated her like gold and gave her everything she wanted. When she got pregnant, Dexter was very happy to marry her. For years later, they had 3 children. Marcia was a housewife, as Dexter made a good living for his family. After the birth of the youngest of the first 3 children, Marcia told Dexter that she wanted to work. It would give her the opportunity to spend more time in society, and they would always need extra money. Apparently, she met an old friend who told her about the real estate sale. The couple talked about it, and both agreed that it would be good for her. At first, she attended evening classes. After she got her real estate license, she got a job at Russell Real Estate. Dexter talked about how busy their family's life was. Most of the time, he worked from 9 to 5, although Marcia did not work according to schedule. She spent many evenings at her job. In the next 3 years, they had 2 more children. Dexter's mother lived just a few houses down the street from them and was ready to look after the children as soon as possible. As the children got older, life became more hectic. Dexter and Marcia tried their best to attend all the special events the children went to. Dexter often had to walk alone. Their children went to scouts, groups, and sports clubs. He said he didn't really mind because he loved his children and his wife. After Marcia started working, she went on a strict diet and started exercising. She lost some weight before becoming pregnant with their 4th child. As soon as he was born, she returned to a diet and exercise program. She did the same after the birth of her 5th child. It was then that her fallopian tubes were bandaged, as they decided that 5 children would be enough. Dexter said she looked really good and their love life had even improved. He mentioned that when they first made love, they both felt awkward. He said Marcia was the aggressor in their love relationship. She talked to her friends, and they advised her to try something new. Marcia didn't hesitate to make love, Dexter added. He mentioned that he was a little reluctant to make love to Marcia, but since she did it for him, he did the same for her. The only thing Dexter said about his love life was that Marcia was always ready and waiting. Dexter, over the years, we've had a dozen people come to us calling themselves the Halloween Killer. They all wanted to become famous for some unholy reason. I'm here now because you used a hypodermic syringe to kill a man. Why should we believe that you are the real killer and not just some copycat? I'll tell you everything you need to know, starting with Joe Bussey, Dexter said. Joe wasn't the first victim, Dexter, I replied. I know. John Kane was like that, but it all started because of Joe. 11 years ago, Marcia wanted to work for Russell Real Estate. They threw a party at the Holiday Inn to celebrate the 40th anniversary of their business. At that time, Art's father was in charge of the business. How does this relate? I asked, trying to put all the pieces of the puzzle together. Art Sr. died 5 years ago, and Art Jr. became president. Marcia wanted to go, but one of the children had a ball game. I told her to go ahead. After the game, I ran to the party. They invited former clients, as well as their fellow employees from other branches, to this holiday. I didn't know most of the people, just a few from Marcia's office. When I got there, Marcia was in the pool in a two-piece swimsuit. She seemed to be having a good time, so I didn't bother her. Instead, I sat down at the counter and ordered a soda, since I don't drink. I tried, but I didn't like it. Go on, I said. Anyway, I was sitting next to Joe Bussey. I've never met him before. He was very drunk and was talking violently while watching the march. He told me that she was the best girl he had ever had. I was shocked. I couldn't believe he was talking about my march. It looks like he was working with John Kane, who bought the house from Marcia. He told Joe that she was giving extra benefits. Joe said that because he was looking for a house, he went to Marcia. They did the same to him. She made love to him 4 times before the deal was done. After that, she didn't want to see him anymore. I was completely speechless and couldn't think, Dexter said, looking around the room and pausing. This guy, Joe, told me it happened 7 years ago. To be honest, I didn't know what to think. Has she really been cheating on me all this time? I needed to know more, but until then I was going to give myself the opportunity to doubt. Good. So what convinced you that your wife cheated on you? And why did you decide to take revenge after so many years? I asked. Marcia hasn't changed. She still treated me and the children the same way. One evening, after she left to show the house, I went up to the attic above the garage and took out all our past records. We never threw anything away in case we needed them later. I went back to the time when Marcia started working and looked through her diaries. They recorded all her meetings and sales. It was almost like a diary of her life. Everyone she saw and talked to. I came across John Kane. I read how many times his name appeared in her diary. She also had a sign on the back with information about a potential client. I noticed the letters after some of the names. Then, in some, but not in such a large number, there were the letters HS. It took me a long time to figure out the code, but when I figured it out, everything fell into place. M meant appointment, P meant potential customer, and C meant sold. And S and HS meant the absence of love, and there was love. One thing I noticed in the notes to HS was that the home buyer or potential buyer had to lose more or as much as Marcia. So tell me why you chose John Kane as your first victim. Tell me something you couldn't just read about in the newspapers. Marcia sat on the couch and cried during the interview. One of her sisters was sitting with her. Most of those present just stared at her, waiting for the story to continue. They continued to eat and drink, which seemed strange to me. After reading a few names in the diary, the first thing I came across was John Kane. At first I thought about Joe Bussey's murder, but I talked to him at a party just a couple of months ago and didn't want to leave any clues that could lead to me. So what was your plan, Dexter? I went online and found how to prepare a poison that could be used in a hypodermic syringe to kill a person quickly. I went into the pharmacy part of the city and picked up some disposable syringes. I didn't care who used them. I went to the store and bought a suit that can be found anywhere. I chose the sad clown mask because the thought of Marcia doing such things made me sad. It was a candy night, and I drove around the corner of the house where John Kane lived. So, I've done additional work with all the victims. I didn't want any big surprises. I just wanted revenge. Since I'm short, I can pass for a child in a suit. I waited until there were no children left at his door and shouted, "Trick or treat." When John opened it, I stuck a needle in his chest. I saw the look on his face when he fell to the floor. I turned quickly and headed back to my car. When I heard the scream, I thought it was his wife. I rushed home and parked the car in the garage. Then I took off my costume and took the sweets to my younger children. I didn't know if John was dead or not until I read about it in the newspaper the next day. So, how did you feel when you took this life, Dexter? I asked. Fear that I might be caught, but no remorse. He made love to my wife many times. Here, I have her diary where she wrote it down. Dexter took a stack of diaries from his gym bag over the years. You can't take them away, Marcia shouted. These are my personal belongings. I'm sorry, Mrs. Manowitz. It's evidence in at least 10 murders. You will get them back after your husband's trial. Marcia started crying again while her sister and one of her friends comforted her. It was amazing how quiet the crowd was. What happened next? Life went on as usual. I spent time planning my next victim, which was Joe Bussey. Otherwise, we lived as usual. I can't help but wonder why you didn't just kill Marcia, or at least divorce her. I can't say that I haven't thought about it. In fact, I've often thought about it. The problem is that I loved her. I really loved him. She was a wonderful mother and a good wife. There was no way I could hurt her. I hated her at times when I thought about it, but she never flaunted it or brought it home. She never found out that I guessed what she was doing. Okay, Dexter, tell me about your second victim, I asked, needing additional confirmation that he was the killer. You already know that it was Joe Bussey. He worked in the same consulting office as John. Having chosen him next, the investigators were busy looking for a connection. They never thought about going back 7 years to when they both bought their houses from Marcia. How did you arrange all this? I asked. I had looked through police files so many times that I knew them by heart. Right now, I was still a little doubtful that Dexter was the person who committed all these murders. They had a Halloween dress-up party at their office. No one paid any attention to the clown who entered. It was lunchtime, and they were all hanging around the office. I waited in the bathroom stall until Joe came in. When he turned around, I plunged the needle into his chest. He fell back against the sink. A few people saw me coming out, but I was wearing a suit. By the time they found Joe, I had long since left and was wearing normal clothes. I went back to my work, and no one found out anything. Was Marcia surprised when she heard about these deaths? No, not right away. After all, she sold these houses 7 years ago. She found out a couple of names that came up later, Dexter said. Give me an example. Well, number 6 was a congressman named Bill Elliott. I remember she said she worked for his campaign. Although she didn't sell him the house, she slept with him. His name was in her diary. As far as I know, she made love to him twice. How did you get close enough to kill him? It wasn't that difficult. He attended several Halloween events. I was just following his schedule and saw him when he came to high school to perform. All the students were dressed in costumes, so it was easy to blend in with the crowd. The funny thing about toilets is that everyone should use them sometime. So, I changed my costume that time. After 5 murders using a clown outfit, I decided to go dressed up as Jason, who was so popular with children. Why do you think you got away with it for so long? The investigators continued to search in the wrong places. After John Kane was eliminated, they had nothing. Then they tried to find a connection between John and Joe. As they worked together, they continued to keep an eye on competitors or their office staff. After that, Terrell Bosley, a professional athlete, appeared. If you look at the diary, you will see that Marcia showed him several houses. She slept with him twice, but she never sold him the house. He was just using her. That's why I assigned him number 3. He was the only one I spent 2 needles on. As an athlete, I wanted to make sure I used enough poison. Where did you kill him, Dexter? It was in a motel room. Even though he was married, he picked up white women after training and made love to them. A Halloween party was held in the banquet hall. Terrell had nothing to do with it. He was there only for love. I was dressed as a clown and used a card to open his door. At that time, he was using some woman. I came up behind him and stuck both needles in his back. The woman screamed as he fell on top of her. I went down the stairs to the party room and out the door before the police showed up. They were busy looking for the husbands of the various women he slept with. Fortunately, they didn't know about the march. Of course, they were together for about 6 years before his death. Dexter continued to voice his list of murders. Some are at home, others at meetings or parties. He gave details that were unknown to the general public. Dexter was definitely a Halloween killer. Okay, Dexter, so why did it end tonight? Why did you kill Art Russell and let everyone see this? Why don't you continue your bloody fun? Are there any more names here? I asked, looking through the pages of the diary. It's because of Marcia. As long as I felt that she loved me, I could ignore the adultery. But everything has changed. What do you mean? After the death of Art Russell Sr., Marcia got a job as a secretary to Art Jr., and things seemed to be going better. I looked through the last couple of diaries, and she wasn't making love to clients anymore. She had meetings, but I didn't notice the letter C next to the names. However, I noticed that she met with her boss quite often. As I mentioned, he recently divorced his wife. It made me wonder if Marcia had met him. Our youngest graduated from college this summer and now lives alone. We no longer have children at home, and some have moved to other states. I came home early one day. Marcia must not have heard me pull into the garage. I looked at the phone and noticed that there was a light bulb on. This meant that Marcia was using it. I picked up the phone and listened. She talked to Art and told him that now that all the children have left home, she's going to leave me to marry him. I was devastated. I put up with her all these years because I loved her, and now she was going to leave me. He turned to take another look at his wife. Marcia gasped, but didn't say anything. I saw the pain in his eyes. I heard her tell Art that she was going to go to a Halloween party in a wedding dress, and he should wear a tuxedo. He told her that after the party they were going to tell me about the divorce. She kept telling him how much she loved him and couldn't live without him. Within a few weeks after that phone call, I changed the recipient for all my insurance. I transferred all the funds I had to my children. I asked my lawyer to change my will. Of course, I knew that half of everything we owned together would go to Marcia, but my half would be divided between the children. If they wanted to give it to their mother, it would be their choice. Dexter, I'm still surprised you let Marcia live. It's because of her love for Art Russell. I don't understand, I replied. I saw a program on TV where a man was asked why he killed his lover and not his wife. He replied that if he had shot her, she would have been hurt. If he had killed the one she loved, she would have suffered all her life, Dexter explained. You see, she doesn't have love anymore, and the world knows what a cheater she was, so she will suffer all her life. What about you? After that, you will go to prison and, most likely, you will remain on death row for several years. You will have to go through the pain too. No, that's not going to happen, he said, raising the gun. Dexter, you promised you wouldn't shoot anyone else. Aren't you a man of your word? I asked, trying to dissuade him from shooting anyone, including himself. He reached into his gym bag and pulled out a hypodermic needle. In the blink of an eye, he plunged it into his heart. Marcia, I've always loved you. Now you can explain all this to the kids, Dexter said, dropping the gun and falling to the floor. Marcia screamed again, but everyone just looked at her and shook their heads. Her sister was the only one who tried to calm her down. I opened the door and the SWAT team took everyone outside. Paramedics covered Dexter's body and later took him to the morgue. In the following months, this story did not leave the TV screens. Marcia's life turned into a living hell. She had to sell her house and leave town. She even took back her maiden name so that no one would find out who she was. Her children wanted nothing to do with her. They believed that it was her fault that their father behaved in this way. None of them had bequeathed anything to her. As for me, the department gave me credit for catching the Halloween killer. I didn't deserve any honors, but the mayor wanted to make headlines. I often wonder how many other men look like Dexter. He was willing to put up with his wife's infidelity because he loved her. The epilogue. It's been a year since there was a murder last Halloween. Art Russell's ex-wife has taken back the business. He never transferred ownership, and half of it belonged to her anyway. I was sitting at my desk, getting ready to go home, when I got a call. The woman was found with a hypodermic needle in her chest, but she was still alive. I couldn't believe it when I rushed to the specified address. It was Marcia Dunworthy, formerly Marcia Manowitz. When I arrived, she was already being put into an ambulance. A neighbor who was watering her lawn remembered the license plate of the car driving away from Marcia's house. The whole department was on site and looking for her. When they stopped the car, they discovered that it was Jack Randall's wife. He was one of the men who slept with Marcia. It's her fault too. She ruined my marriage and my family, and she has to pay for what she did. I don't understand why she was never charged. Beverly Randall, accused of attempted murder, is now awaiting trial. As for Marcia Dunworthy Manowitz, she is in a coma. The doctors don't know if she'll ever come out of it. The poison Beverly used destroyed her brain cells, but left her heart normal. I think now we just have to wait for next Halloween and hope that there will be no more copycat murders. End.